In this chapter, I'm going to be working on the blockout. I will be using some AI tools like Meshy. I will be using ZBrush and TopoGun. But TopoGun you can replace with Blender or any other 3D modeling application. So let's get started. Okay, let's begin with something a little bit different, at least for me. I'm using here Meshy 3D, and there's going to be another AI tool that I'm going to demonstrate. Well, I guess not demonstrate, but just show what the result was. They're very similar. The reason why I've decided to do it is to one more time just check what the tools are capable of at the moment. But the good thing about it really is that it allows you to see the silhouette. It allows you to see the scale and proportions a little bit better than just onto the image, right? It's also very helpful because we can see the side view, we can see the back view. There is well, obviously artificial intelligence, so it's trying to kind of fill in the gaps, the missing gaps of the design, which is working and not working, because from the distance this hat, this crown, that is a bunch of everything kind of combined together. One of the things that we mentioned in the previous chapter is the Aztec, or I guess South American design, but from here it's nothing I can think of. I mean, from distance you might feel like this is a little bit of Egyptian design, the crowns of pharaohs, but definitely not that. It's just that the lining gives this impression. But it's I guess it's the proportions that is the biggest advantage of using those tools. In terms of utilizing the geometry, the actual geometry for doing the production, this is kind of useless really, because even though some of the things we perhaps can retopologize, like for example those beats, they're quite clean, they are actually surprisingly clean, but because everything in here below, I guess under, is a little bit bent and skewed, and it's not exactly the kind of proportions that I see personally on the image, and not the kind of proportions that I want to go with, because it's a little bit too bird-like, a little bit too much like a creature rather than just being a little bit more humanoid. So those things kinda there, I guess we can use them, but in reality it's much better to just start from scratch, right? So this is just to repeat myself, this is not for that. I'm not using this to create the work from, right? I'm using this purely as the reference. So with that, I'm loading the file into my ZBrush, and I'm just checking the proportions, because the AI still modified some things. At the same time, as you can see, I'm making it into a symmetrical position, so just mirror and weld, so two sides are identical, and I wanted to go with this side instead of the other one. So I'm going with this kind of a gesture for the arm. It's not a T pose, it's not an A pose, obviously. Maybe this would have been, you know, easier to do in some sense, but because I am not going for production, I'm not going to rig this, I'm not going to do anything production ready in some sense. I wanted to capture, I guess, the most difficult silhouette, I guess the most difficult position of the limb, and go from there. So my character is going to be standing in this kind of pose, and then when I'm done with it, I'm just going to relax this section and just turn it into straight, move it up a little bit, and so she's going to be holding the weapon this way. We'll see how it goes, but this is just something that I was thinking about, and this is what I'm going to proceed with. So just like I said, checking, I'm seeing that she's shorter than the silhouette, so than the original concept, so I'm making it a little bit longer. And I'm keeping the previous version as well, so the one that has the asymmetry, it's still stored in here, as you can see, because I can always, I guess this one, I can always just go back and see what the silhouette really is when she is posed, compared to just looking at the symmetrical position of everything. And also, as you can see here, I've started to use ZSpheres, and this is I guess optional, you can just take a base mesh that you have, you can take a scan data that you have, you can align it in here, right? So the legs, the arms, the elbows, you can use ZBrush for that, but I decided to go with ZSpheres, and this way I'm going to reconstruct the body that is underneath all of the armor and just go from there. So very simple process. If you're not familiar with ZSpheres, that's fine, because it's a very outdated feature, I suppose. But for those kind of things that I'm making, it's very useful actually. I'm not going to be worried about the hands, for example, because I'm going to be using some pre-made ones like base mesh. But for the feet, I decided to go with ZSpheres, even though I'm going to replace them as well. But just for the silhouette's sake, I think it's just going to be helpful. I'm leaving the head. You can use ZSpheres for the head. You can insert some ZSpheres in here. Another one for the mouth. You can insert some for the ears. I'm making fun, but because of the head is not really connected to the body in a straightforward way, right? We can just take a head that doesn't have a neck, nothing like that, and we can just insert it in here. So I've decided to just eliminate that altogether, and I'm going to take something that I already have, like a pre-made or maybe even scan data to use for the head. So that's it. That's the process of ZSpheres. Now I'm just trying to align things a little bit closer to the body that I see, and this is where those artificial intelligence tools are quite useful, because I'm not aligning this to the concept art. I'm aligning to the three-dimensional version of it, even though, like I said, I don't like some of the things that AI did, and I'm kind of bypassing them a little bit myself. Here, what I've done just there is basically I've stored the morph target, and then I've projected everything onto the mesh from I think it's from Meshy. This way, this version at least, it wasn't from the another AI. The reason why I did it is because it helps me to capture some of the thickness of the limbs, some of the perhaps gestures of the limbs, something perhaps in here. I can see where the rib cage is, really where the kind of the outline of the breasts are. I have a little bit of a gesture in here, and everything else I'm going to just erase using the morph brush, because I have the morph target stored, and this way I'm sort of capturing the thickness, I guess, the volumes of the body, rather than just trying to, for whatever reason, capture all of the details. I'm working on the body, right? I'm not working on the elements, on the accessories. This is going to be just the body process. And as you can see, I'm deleting that using the morph brush, as well as some just smooth brush. So most of it is gone, but it helped me, for example, in here, helped me get the thickness of the rib cage. So instead of just manually sculpting, even though it's not a big deal, right? But if I do have my instruments, if I have my tools, and if it just takes me a couple of clicks, then I'm going to use that, because it's just the most efficient way of doing things, rather than being a purist and doing everything from scratch. Some repositioning of the feet, of the limbs, that's going to take place, because she's in terms of anatomy, she's quite weird, and I don't want to go in a crazy direction where she's kind of bending all like that, or something like this. I'm going for that. This is more elegant, and this is definitely more elegant than what AI did. AI just created a very bendy limbs, and I don't like that. And this is the element that I was talking about. The AI took it as something completely flat, and as a result, it just looks off. Here I'm not doing any anatomy sculpting. I'm not doing anything for the form. The thing that I'm worried about, or the thing that I'm taking care of, is making sure that everything is round, right? I don't have any pinching happening somewhere in here, maybe on the other side. So I'm just worried that not worried, but I'm trying to secure the roundness of the of this base mesh, and that's it. So there are some tools like clay buildup and smooth and things like that, but this is definitely not muscle definition, nothing like that. This is just primary, not even forms, but just a silhouette, really. And this is what I'm going to be using throughout this character, instead of relying on 3D modeling, which is something that I've been doing for a very long time, because this kind of armor is more organic in nature, or I guess it's just so tied to the underlying structure of the character. Instead of, you know, creating a normal, quote-unquote normal process of just modeling things individually and then aligning them and then modifying the vertices, etc., etc., etc. What I'm doing here is I'm building the silhouette of the armor using the copy, as you can see in here, the copy of the body, right? And I'm tracing what I think the armor is going to be. So then I can take it to TopoGun and I'm going to retopologize it and get my armor this way. For me, it's just a much more intuitive way of working. It's not better or worse. It's not, well, efficiency wise, I'm not sure. It might be the same. I personally think this is just a little bit faster and a little bit more predictable, I guess. But the most fundamental thing for me personally is that I can see in 3D, in real time, where the armor is going to be, right? Instead of relying on kind of quick base mesh and then moving things individually in terms of vertices, position of the vertices, I can just either using poly paint, you can use just paint the outline of the armor. For me, I use damp standard. I can just, you know, paint and sculpt it this way. If I rotate and I feel like this is not working, I can just sculpt maybe something like that, and then when I'm happy, I'm going to take that into another application and just do retopology this way. And at the same time, you can see I can already work on the silhouette, on the form. I can define things as the way I want them to be in the end, right? So I don't want it to be just a simple shape like that. I don't want it to be kind of predictable thing. I want it to be something more interesting, with things going almost this way. There's a curvature going in, another curvature going in, but I think this one I'm going to a little bit just straighter. But it's those kind of design choices, design language that I'm trying to build on this low resolution, right? And again, I'm not working on a base mesh of any sort. I'm just using the same mesh that I'm using for the body, and this way I can just in real time modify and see what exactly is going to work better for this particular character. A little bit of silhouette work, because I want it to be more interesting than just a simple pear-like shape or whatever we want to compare it with. And I'm doing the piece on the upper leg as well. And as I did it, I realized when I put it in here and my lower part was in here, I realized that the distance between the knee was not the knee, but the distance between them, where the knee is too much, right? You can see on the concept, it's not actually that big, even though I'm taking the lower section of the armor somewhere in here, right, and the top section of the armor in here. So this is the difference. Excuse me, this is the length, but it's definitely, even if I take it this way and this way, it's still a bit too much. So I'm trying to fix it by moving lower part a little bit higher. And the process here is the same. I traced the outline and then I'm filling the missing volume with some brushes. Standard brush or clay brush, doesn't really matter, whichever ones you prefer. Always checking on the silhouette, always, this is the most important part. When I work on such low resolution meshes, this is what I'm trying to trace, right? So I'm playing with the design language, I'm playing with the silhouette. I don't want to see any straight lines. I don't want to see any crazy exaggerations. I'm just constantly looking at different sides. I'm looking at this side and I'm looking at this side, and I'm trying to find some kind of, it's not even a balance, it's almost in some cases it might be almost like a conflict, that maybe one part is dominating, so you take another one and you submit it, or you maybe do some kind of counterbalancing act. It's difficult to explain, especially in real time, as I just comment the progress, but this is the stage where I'm doing those kind of things. I mean, I will be doing that throughout the whole of the stages, but when I have such a low resolution mesh, this is the most easiest, I guess, of the stages to do it, because I'm, you know, if I select somewhere in here with the move brush, I'm moving the whole section quite easily. If this was a very high resolution mesh and I've decided to kind of move this section out, I would probably just move it a little bit in like that, right? Because there are just so many polygons already. But when there is so little, so few of them, I'm moving just bigger chunks, and it's just a much more fluent way for me to do this kind of changes. Doing the similar thing to the to what I've done at the on this element, right? I'm pinching this one out, so from the side view it would be a little bit sharper like that, right? So this is going to be the leg. Just checking, just literally playing with what works, what fits. If it's not going to work, if it doesn't fit, I just erase it and modify it quite easily. So here I am in TopoGun. You can use any application. You can even use ZBrush, Retopology tools. You can use Blender. Doesn't really matter. For me personally, I'm using, as you can see, I'm TopoGun 2. So this is probably 10 years old or something like that, this license. But I don't want anything else from this program at this stage, at least, because what I'm doing in here, you will see, is something very, very, very simple. It's just a few points, right? For example, here on the curvature, I'm just a few points. Here is going to be a few points, literally one in this case, and I'm going to fill this section with some polygons. I'm going to smooth it out, and that's going to be the armor piece. That's it. That's how I use TopoGun pretty much all the time, unless of course I'm doing some proper topology for, you know, film characters or video game characters. I rely on TopoGun, but for doing those kind of things like base meshes, that's what I'm doing. So you can see, just connected those points, inserted those ones very easily, and then I'm just taking a smooth brush and I'm redistributing them, those points a little bit better, right? So they're a little bit smoother compared to what the automatic process does. And I'm being very, very picky, even in this stage. It's probably a waste of time, but I still prefer to do it this way because it's just a nice visualization. And I forgot to make the top section of the arm, so that's what I'm doing here, just fixing that and re-exporting that back into TopoGun. So the same process, inserting some edges, some edge loops, a smooth brush, and that's about it. So that's done. Those two pieces are done. If I need to, if depending on the project, depending on the character, if I need to, I can always just subdivide those pieces, and then I can reproject the detail, or I guess the kind of the forms from the sculpt onto them. And this way I'm going to get a little bit higher density meshes, but they're going to already have some of this detail on them. For this case, I'm just going with a very basic versions of them, because the armor is quite smooth, it's quite organic. I don't really want to overcrowd my base meshes this way. So what I've just done there, if I added some creases, because I decided not to add any extra supporting loops at the edges, right? I'm just creased them and then subdivide them. And even though I think I said I'm not going to reproject anything, actually I did exactly that. So I did subdivide this one more time, and then I pressed project all, and I got a little bit of the form from the sculpt, right? So this is going to be the base mesh, not the previous version, but this is going to be the version that has some of the detail. And here I'm just adjusting the silhouette. I realized that it wasn't working, and it's just a very simple way of addressing that, because there's just so few polygons in here, right? So few points. It's very easy to move everything and have beautiful and clean curvature this way. Again, just going back to what I said 5 minutes ago, something like that. If this was a very high density mesh, creating this kind of curvature would have been a nightmare using Move Brush, because you would need to be well, I'm not going to go in that, just trust me. Compare it to yourself, subdivide many times, and see how clean you can get a line, right? How clean you can get an outline of anything. So when you have fewer points, it's much easier to do it. Cleaning things up, building some volumes, and just checking with the AI version. I wanted to see just if I'm going too far, if my armor is going a little bit outside of the outline of the mesh, if it's going too much in. So because this is very close to the concept art, right? Instead of just constantly checking with the design in here, it's much for me easier to just check it in 3D. It's working pretty well. So I'm hiding the body parts that I used to create the armor, and I want to see what it looks like with the other limbs. Working on the body, just tracing some of those elements, some of those pieces of the armor. At the same time, I've just stored the camera view. I should have done it, I guess, earlier, but if you go into Draw, press Store Camera, whatever the button is called, you can just then click, and you're going to just automatically align it to the angle that you like. So in this section, I will be working on the skirt, and at the same time I'm building in some of the form, some of this I guess anatomy, or just some musculature, because it was missing from my ZSpheres, and it wasn't possible to reproject something in here, because, well, actually I am already working on the AI just kind of eliminated the section almost completely, right? It was something very shallow, and I don't really like that look. So I'm going to sculpt this manually and then trace the rest of the body. You can see just how different the design is compared to the artificial intelligence result, right? The breast was somewhere in here, quite a bit bigger, so I'm addressing that in here as well. This is what I was talking about, this tail thing, right? I moved some of this, some of the not elements, but some of this I moved inwards, but definitely not going to go with this look. I hate this kind of silhouette. Well, not hate it, but for this particular character, I mean, look at the feet, and look here, look at the bend. This is definitely a rooster, right? So if I can do it this way, right? That's definitely not what I want to go with. I don't want it to be a bird-like creature. I want it to be human-like creature. And from the back, I'm just, I guess, inventing the design, thinking that this is how it's going to go. I'm not making any holes in there. For example, from the top view, or excuse me, front view, the design here is going in this kind of way, and it's not connected, right? This is where the skirt, quote-unquote skirt, ends, so going this way, and then there's a gap and another element comes in from the back. For the skirt, I've decided not to do anything like this. It's just going to be a continuous shape, and then it's going to be I think it's covered by the clothing. Maybe the clothing is going to be from behind, doesn't really matter, but it's going to be a solid piece. For me, this design works pretty well. And the same process with the skirt, just retopology very quickly. You can see I'm smoothing, and then manually if I need to, I redistribute it a little bit better, but it's very quickly, very simple process. That's it. That's going to be the skirt. So working on the silhouettes in ZBrush, just much easier this way. I know the brushes so well. I'm not snapping it to anything if compared to, let's say, TopoGun, because I have to have some kind of underlying structure for doing any movement. Right here is everything is detached in some sense, and I can do whatever I want. I can modify things very quickly, move brushes, clay buildup, whatever it takes to clean up some of this mesh. The same process as before, just a crease on the edges and then subdivide one more time. I'm not reprojecting anything because there is no need. It's a very simple surface. There's not much going on here. In fact, I'm kind of feeding all of that in manually. Now it was flat, and now I'm adding a little bit of a curvature in here. Not everywhere. I mean, it's already curvy, but I'm building some mass somewhere in here, right? To me, this works a little bit better. Checking the silhouette without the armor, you can see just how thin she is, really, and that's one of the attractions, I guess, was for me in the design, that I saw that what I will be working on is not the detail, right? It's not the kind of crazy amount of everything that is taking place, even though there is crazy amount of everything taking place, especially again the crowd. It's just so in some sense overdone, but it's working somehow. I'm not even sure how, but it doesn't matter. What I saw in the design is definitely that you know, underneath all of this detail, all of this noise, I saw the silhouette, I saw the fluid forms, and this is what the attraction was to me. I realized that this is going to be not the character where I'm going to be doing heavy modeling. This is not going to be the character where where I will be doing heavy amounts of hair and all of those technicalities, even though I will be using Marvelous Designer for those pieces, for clothing just in general very quickly. But it's that what I really like about the character, this freedom to do, you know, silhouettes, the kind of flow of fluid forms and shapes, and plenty of sculpting, some detailing, quite predictable texturing, but it's going to be attractive. Attractive texturing sounds strange, but it's going to be kind of colorful, but not definitely exaggerated, so definitely stylistic. But this is definitely the attraction for me, for sure. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I'm working on the body. The full process without the speed up, without any cutting, is going to be available separately if you want to have a look there. But for these videos, it's going to be definitely sped up. So here I'm working on the torso, on the body, and I'm doing the exact same thing as with the legs and the skirt. Here it's going to be a little bit different because I don't really want to make those separate plates right now, because there is quite a bit of detail on the body. It's some kind of a blend between armor and real musculature. So if I'm going to separate things at this point, right, if I'm going to create those plates that I've outlined in here, meaning that I'm going to do retopology of that part, right? There's going to be a separate element. Then I'm going to create perhaps this one as a separate element, because there is just so much going on in here. I need to sculpt quite a few details. It means that I will need to be working on those two pieces simultaneously, even though those pieces are not really connected. They're different subtools. I hope I'm making myself clear. Just when I'm working on everything together, when I'm sculpting, it's much easier this way. But I'm still outlining, I'm still tracing the armor, and I'm going to be subdividing this a few more times. I'm going to do the actual sculpting, and only after that I'm going to do the retopology, this kind of TopoGun pipeline that I did for the armor. So very simple, damn standard to do the outline, clay buildup to make the form, and I'm just tracing it very loosely. This is definitely not any kind of anatomy, right? It might look like this is the kind of structure that we see in here, right? Those muscles in here, then the muscles on the rib cage, then the rib cage. This is definitely not that. This is the abdomen, right? It doesn't have to be looking this way, but this is what I see on the design, and I'm definitely going to be paying close attention to that. At the moment, I'm just tracing the elements, and at the same time, I want to make sure that this reads like something organic, right? I want to see a little bit of a bump here in the abdomen. I want to see a little bit of a curvature in here. I want the rib cage to kind of stick out a little bit, maybe even more. I want the breasts to look more natural, even though they are, in some sense, they are the armor, but this character is so interesting in terms of design that we don't really see where is the armor really and where is the body, right? So those gray areas, those gray elements on the original concept art, they can be both. They can be both the armor as well as the body, and so the breasts, they are in that gray area, and that's why I'm making them a little bit more natural. So this is the design, and this is what it looks like from the side. This is borderline extreme, but it's not extreme. But like I said, I don't want it to look like a bird, right? This is definitely in that kind of a realm. So I'm going to see whether there's something I can change in here. But at the same time, I do like this kind of a curve that we have in here, especially this. There's something about this kind of curvature that I really enjoy. The really pronounced scapulas, the kind of lower, upper back, then it goes right inwards into the lower back, goes into the butt, and then goes into beautiful shapes of the arm, of the legs, and at the same time beautiful curvature, but definitely not as extreme as this one, right? This is what I was saying about design choices. So I guess design language is that there is this kind of a energy and power, I guess, and very not exaggerated, but it's very sharp and very raw. But at the same time, here in the front we have just curves, right, like that, like those ones. So in some sense this can't counterbalance this, but I have no idea if this is the case, right? I just feel that this works, so that's the best way I can explain it. But I do like that, and I do work on this no matter what it is, right? If it's just a piece of the armor, if it's just a piece of, I don't know, finger, it doesn't really matter. I'm always looking at those kind of sides, right? So here, for example, this is going to be the side here, but here it's going to be a bit sharper going this way. No rules for that. Perhaps there are some, I have no idea what they are, but I just don't want it to be symmetrical. Let's put it this way. The last thing I want for anything on the character to be is just symmetry, right? Because it's just super boring. So making this look more like a body rather than some kind of an armor. Again, from the side, you can see that if it wasn't for the legs somewhere in here, this is looking very like a human body, and that's exactly what I want. Plus, very, very sharp exaggeration in here. Here I've already integrated a head. It's from the 3dscanstore.com. It's one of the kind of cleaned up versions of the scans, and I'm just putting it as a placeholder because I want to start working on the on the rest of the armor, right, on the rest of the body. Here it's the silhouette that matters, and at the same time I want to be able to trace those intricate panels that the character has. So for the time being, I don't really care what the head looks like. One thing that I do care about is that there is already a structure in here. There is already UVs in here. Everything is split, meaning that it's not just a dynameshed version of a head. There are some eyes in here, right? If you are thinking that this is some kind of you know, when I start from everything from scratch, like ZSpheres and etc., and then all of a sudden have a scan for the head, this is definitely the right quote unquote the right approach of doing things, right? You don't want ever to start on something from scratch when you already have the tools available to you. If you have a base mesh, use that. If you have scan data that you can use freely without breaking the license, use that, right? There is absolutely no point in making everything from scratch. The reason why I made body from scratch is because she's she's quite different, right? She's not exactly a human being. But everything else, if I'm going to use something, I'm definitely going to use that. So for example, the head is going to be one thing, the hands is going to be another thing that I'm going to be using, and the feet, I'm going to be actually using the hand for the feet, and you will see why. Here, instead of tracing things with a damn standard brush, like I did, for example, on the legs and the body, it was a little bit confusing. So what I did instead, I've just reprojected the textures from the not the textures but the design from the concept art onto the neck, and this way I can trace a little bit better. I mean, it's a mess in here, but at the very least I can see some of this gold elements, and I can use that for tracing. So just another approach, but it's the same thing. Adjusting some of this outlines of the armor. Once now that I have the neck, I can see that it wasn't aligning well. And the back of the neck, I'm going to keep very, very simple. Definitely not what I have at the moment, but close to what I'm going to have. I don't want to have any intricate paneling in here. It's going to be probably hidden by the hair, but it's not the point. I don't want to hide anything and make some kind of simple decisions. I just think that everything really happens in the back for this character. In the front. The back is going to be mostly relying on the silhouettes and the elements that produce that kind of silhouette. So in terms of the detail, in terms of the design choices, it's going to be more kind of predictable, and I like it this way. Just outlining the body a little bit, because this section of the character is actually going to be visible. It's very, very difficult to see on the concept art. It's not even visible on the AI results, but it's going to be visible when I work on it, when I present it, right? Because the feathers or whatever those things are, they're going to be probably going somewhere in here. I'm pretty sure some of them are going to be invisible in some sense. There's going to be some opacity in here, so I want those shapes of the body to be visible. They're going in here, they're going to be connecting back in here, right, the arms, etc., etc. So this section is definitely needed, right? Even though in the concept art we can barely see anything in there, but I want to make sure that I capture that, and it's going to be following some anatomy based on a human anatomy. And the last bit that I'm going to show in the video is going to be the shoulder pads. The same process as with the rest of the armor. In this case, I've instead of building from the body, modifying the body, I've just inserted a sphere, and I'm constructing the form this way, right? So I'm just sculpting the silhouette, sculpting the form, and I'm going to, you can see, check how well it aligns. I need to squeeze it a little bit this way, maybe move it a little bit this way, just constantly checking the silhouette and building the mesh itself. At the moment, I'm going to construct it as one mesh. I'm going to remove this connection in here, but it's going to be one kind of continuous mesh this way. Once I introduce the metal bits, the gold bits somewhere in here, I'm probably going to split into two pieces. So this is going to be top, this is going to be bottom, but for the time being, I just want to have a cleaner mesh. I can use Z remesher for that, but the reason why I don't do that is because if I control my flow of the polygons, I can very easily generate that that gold piece, right? I can just simply cut some of those polygons out. I can just inflate this strip, and automatically I get my gold piece. At the same time, if I want to make some kind of a leap on the design somewhere in here, instead of relying on sculpting and just kind of manually going on the whole of the curvature, or outline of the mesh, I can simply create let me clean this up. I can simply create an edge loop somewhere in here, and then just extrude it inwards, or just take those edge loops, edges, and move them out. So in this case, geometry is a very helpful thing. I'm controlling this because there is a usability in that, right? I'm not just trying to create a clean mesh. I can definitely use some other tools for that. I want to control it, so I know that in the future I'm going to be able to use it for something else. In fact, if it was a, let's say, even video game character, I could probably just reuse that for low poly creation, right? Definitely, not even, but definitely can use that. And this is something that I do all the time when I have characters that are full of elements, full of armor, accessories, and things like that. So all of those things I'm sculpting on, and at the same time I'm reusing later for the low poly. Just moving some edges in to capture the silhouette a little bit better. And here I've added a crease line, crease on this particular edge loop, because if I do subdivide this without it, the whole silhouette is just breaking. But I want to preserve that line in here, right? So I just using the Z modeler, selected those lines in here and just created a crease for that and subdivided. Then you didn't see it probably because it was so fast. I actually eliminated the crease from the mesh. The reason why I did it is because once I'm going to subdivide it one more time, I don't want this kind of crispness taking place in here. I want it to be a little bit smoother, because, well, this is not the kind of design that I see, right? I want everything to be smoother. So this crease was just to subdivide it one more time, so I can preserve the silhouette, and that's it. It's not to make the detail in here, just to preserve the silhouette, and then it's going to be normal subdivision going from here. So that's it. That's going to be the result for this week. So it's one of those difficult, well, not difficult, but kind of annoying stages that we have to go through, because we're just blocking out everything. We're not doing any kind of detailing, but at the same time, it's a very satisfying process, because here we are working already on the silhouettes. We're already working on some of the fundamental forms and shapes. The thing that I've added after the shoulder pads is those bits in here. I've modified some of the geometry on the feet, because I wanted to have something for this particular element, right, rather than just have a very simple replacement for the finger. I've already added some detail in there, just so I can have a little bit better silhouette, so I can see where the armor has to be, right? And this is just a very simple modification, but that's it. That's going to be the stage for that. The next part is going to be most likely just sculpting, quite a bit of but quite a bit of sculpting on the body, especially in this area in here. Probably sculpting on the arms for sure. Definitely sculpting on the fingers, the hands, and that's probably it. So I'm going to see you in the next chapter.